Jeremy TV.
Welcome back to the channel. Jeremy here. I'm with you on a cold, windy day here in southern Oklahoma in January, and we've been having some pretty mild weather, but we had a cold front blow through that within a 24-hour period we went from being under a tornado watch to being under a winter storm watch. So that didn't really pan out. We got just a very tiny bit of snow, not enough to even stick. We got some sleet, didn't really bother the roads too much, but it's still pretty cold. It's supposed to get up to about 50 today. It's nowhere near that yet, but the south winds are blowing, probably blowing in some warm air. I think this week's supposed to be warm, so who knows. This winter has been just stupid already. Not much winter to it, way more spring than anything. So if you'll remember back a few weeks ago, about 4 videos ago, I cut down some stuff that had fallen on the fence, and the tree that it was attached to was very dead. It's still standing. You can see it just right over there. It's the tree that doesn't have any green on it. It's the biggest tree over there, and it is quite dead. So I had mentioned before that I didn't want to cut it down that day because it was warm and the wasps were swarming the tree pretty bad. So I wanted to wait till it was cold enough that I could get out here and cut it down without being inundated by the wasps. So today I'm going to give that a try. It's just above freezing. It has been freezing for several hours, so last night got down to the mid-20s. So if there are any wasps in there, they shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, because of the 6 or 7 inches of rain we had the last couple of days, I'm probably not going to be able to move it anywhere. I'll probably be able to get it down on the ground. The wind's blowing out of the south, so at least it will help keep it away from the fence. And then I think most of the weight left on the tree tends to be on this north side rather than the south side where the fence is. So I hope we don't run into any problems, but so far I've been pretty fortunate in that I've not cut a tree down onto my fence. Okay, so I'm not done with my angle cut to try to get that wedge knocked out where we can get that tree down. But I was afraid that as I started cutting into that it was so dead and rotten that it was going to fall over before I could get the camera where it needed to be to see the tree hit the ground. So I'd rather get the fall than me making the cut if I have to choose. So I went ahead and repositioned the camera so once that does get enough cut out of there, it can fall over, that you'll see the fall down on the camera. Alright, so we got that big part of the tree down, but I don't know if you noticed when I made the notch cut, I didn't go all the way to the bottom of the trunk to make that cut, because there's still quite a bit of weight kind of up and behind where I was cutting and where I wanted to fall. So I decided to cut high, get the big part of the tree down first, and then I can work with what's left. I'm going to go back and make another cut on the back part that's left, get that on the ground, and then I can work with the stump. And I may just leave that stump for a couple of years or 3 years and wait till it rots out real good and then just dig it out with the tractor. I don't see any real need to cut it down as far as getting the stump out of the way. It's not in my way. I don't brush hog over there, so I think I'm just going to leave the 3 or 4 or 5 feet of stump that's left after I'm done getting the dead stuff down on the ground. I feel like it went pretty well. It went pretty much how I planned. It didn't completely come loose from the tree, but once I felt the tree start to give way, I just went ahead and quit cutting, got out of the way, and let it do what it was going to do. And then I can work around this stuff that's on the ground now and kind of get the rest of it down. As I said earlier, I think it's too wet to try to drag anything over to the brush pile, so it's out of the way, it's not hurting anything. I'm probably just going to leave this stuff on the ground for a couple of weeks and let things dry out over here and then start cutting it up and getting it to the brush pile. The other thing I did notice is so far I've not seen any wasps come out of there, so that's a good thing. Although I've not cut out the part that I think is probably hollow yet, so we may still get into a mess, but hopefully it'll be cold enough if we do see any that they'll be real lethargic and won't be able to get after me too bad. Okay, new plan. I think all 3 of my chains on my chainsaw are pretty dull, and I feel like I'm just hacking away at it with a butter knife. I'm going to try one other option, which is to throw a chain up over it. I think it's loose enough that the tractor will pull it on down, so it's a long chain. Just going to get up high, give it a little tug, see if the tractor will pull that down. Okay, well, it's all on the ground now with the exception of the stump slash trunk, and it's not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to leave it. It will rot out in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then I'll pull slash dig it out and get it out of the way. Honestly, it's not really in the way because I don't do anything up there except maintain the fence line, and apparently I don't do that very well. So I'm just going to leave the stuff on the ground for right now. 2 reasons. Number 1, and the main one, is that my chainsaw chains are all just as dull as can be, and I don't want to sharpen them today, but I will do a video on sharpening them because I have the Stihl 2-in-1 chain sharpener tool, and it is a handy son of a gun to have, and I want to show you how that works in another video. This part of the project, cutting that up and getting it to the brush pile, will be another video and another project for another day. Fortunately, I didn't get into any wasps. I was glad of that. This tree wasn't as hollow and dead as I thought. Okay, it's dead, but it's not hollow yet. It hasn't been rotting away. So this part right here is kind of rotten. You can see where the woodpeckers have gotten at it. and maybe even the carpenter wasps, I don't know, but carpenter bees or whatever they are. But I didn't encounter a single wasp today, so that was a good thing. I still think they were in there somewhere. Maybe they were just in the ground somewhere and I just didn't see them. Anyway, didn't get into any. That's a good thing. The second reason I'm going to let this be for a little while is this right here. It is way too wet to try to dig any of this heavy, to try to drag any of this heavy stuff over to the brush pile. The brush pile is practically standing in water right now. I mean, this is the east side of the place. This is the lowest part. This stands in water sometimes even after the rest of the pasture has dried. I'm not going to try to drag heavy stuff through this as wet as it is. I'm just going to leave it, and if it sits over here for a month before I can get to it, then it sits over here for a month. But I want to be able to start at it with 3 fresh chains and a little bit of dry ground so I can drag this stuff and get it to the brush pile. So anyway, it was successful in that I got accomplished what I wanted to get accomplished. It was frustrating because of those dull chains, and I mean, I just couldn't get in a good spot. I had to cut down a couple of small locust trees with the thorns on them just to even get up here, and I should have taken the time to pick all this crap up and move it over so I could get a better footing. I thought I could just kind of halfway do it, get in there and hack and it's down, but it wasn't as rotten as I thought. I mean, that old wood's not bad right here. So I was just hacking away at it, and it wasn't giving as quickly as I thought it would give. So I don't want to do things if it's not safe. I'm willing to take a certain amount of risk to get a job done, but not to the point where I'm worried that I'm going to get really hurt and tear up equipment really badly. So I was beginning to get worried with the chains being as dull as they were, and I didn't exactly know how this piece was going to fall. I suspected that it would fall kind of this direction, but I didn't know for sure, and I was afraid if I was wrong I would end up with a 400-pound piece of wood on my back, and I don't need that. So anyway, I was afraid that I was going to have to abandon the project, but I'm glad I got it done, hacked at it long enough to get it loose, and the tractor finished it off. So anyway, I'm going to have to be careful when I cut this up, just because the fact that it's resting up on here. And the reason it is I didn't get it cut all the way through here, and it kind of broke off, which is okay, but all the tree is kind of standing on that end, so it's resting itself on the ground and kind of propped up over here. Well, I'm going to have to work my way. I'm going to cut this limb off and maybe get on the outer edges and start cutting some stuff off and see what we get. But you never want to put yourself in harm's way when you're cutting this kind of stuff. And I'm not a lumberjack by any stretch, but I've cut enough of this stuff that I can kind of see where trouble spots are, and you don't want to be anywhere under this thing in case it does give way and fall, because that's a lot of weight. That's more weight than a person can handle. You don't want to be up underneath any of that stuff, especially if you're cutting things loose, because if that thing does give way and fall, that's still a lot of weight on you. What you want to do is nibble around the edges, and then if things fall, you can just step out of the way and let them fall. But I think I'm going to start out with this limb right here, and then just go out over here and just kind of nibble around the edges until I work my way towards the middle, and it'll be what it'll be. As long as I'm not underneath it, I don't care what happens. So that'll be another project for another day, but I'm glad this is done. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit of, felt like it was a very discombobulated project. It didn't go like I'd planned. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks for coming along on the ride. Hope to see you again soon.